everyone. Welcome to another Astral interview. And here with me, I have Patti, or Patricia Joe Grover, as the show goes. Hello. Thank you
Oh,
for joining us. What an honor. Tell us, Patti, tell us a little bit about yourself before you tell us about the show.
well, a little bit about me. Kind of going back a little bit, not to go too deep, but I had a childhood that most people couldn't conceive, let alone believe. It was all associated with domestic abuse and violence, and how it what it did to me and how it affected me well into adulthood.
Right.
From all that, from that pain comes wisdom, and from that wisdom I have learned my purpose in life, and I know my why, and I have no ands or buts that I'm doing what I'm intended to be doing today. So that's a little bit about me. I
So
help
tell
people.
tell us about your childhood then. Okay, it was abusive, of course. But tell us a little bit about how you coped with it, with that life.
Well, can I go into a little detail? I don't know if that's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
well, see, let me share a little bit. My mother, and it goes back. So I'm not blaming anything for through there. It's just for that understanding of how everything worked. My mother was the oldest out of five, and her father was an alcoholic. And so when the baby out of the five was born, my mother was only 9 years old, and the baby, her mother passed away during childbirth with that fifth child, and my grandfather was unable to emotionally everything take care of the children. So at that time all the children went into a children's home, which was an orphanage at that point, run by nuns. And so it was just very, very matter of factly. There was not a lot of tenderness of the heart, that they were just
Mhm.
maintained. When my mother was old enough, she got farmed out and had to go live on people's farms to earn her own keep,
Right.
at that point.
Wow.
So she never knew what it was really like to have a mother or father, and
Family.
how
Yeah.
family and all that. So
Right.
from there, she was farmed out, and then she went to school just like any other child and graduated high school and everything. But since she didn't know what that was like, the first young man that came along and paid her any attention and affection, she ended up falling in love with and getting married.
Right.
And he so she had four children while she was married with him. And he did construction and was um, working on putting roads and bridges in back then.
Mhm.
And he was a drinker also. And my mother at that point, she hadn't gotten her driver's license, but she had gone to high school and graduated high school, and she did some working and working, doing some CNA work and that type of stuff. Well, he got hurt on the job. And when he got hurt on the job, he then had to stay home with the kids. And she didn't have her driver's license. So she had to go to the closest bigger town and get a job. And she worked all during the week. And then on the weekends, she would come home with the groceries and money to help take care of the children. Well, he wasn't taking care of the children while my mother was away, and the children got taken away and by the state. And um and so it was just a terrible situation. And so they separated, and my mother was trying to build her life back and able to try to get the children back. Well, they wouldn't give her back the children, having just it being her. So she tried to reconcile with
Right.
my with her first husband. She tried to reconcile with him, and in the process of doing that, she got pregnant with her fifth child.
Fifth child. Wow.
And from that, she ended up not being it didn't work out with him. She ended up having to give that child up for adoption right from the hospital. And
Oh,
then after that, again, they got divorced. And out of those four children, two of them got adopted out, and she wasn't able to get them back. And then she got together with my father, who then she was able to get the two oldest children back.
mhm.
And then while she was with my father, she had sister, my physical blood sister, oldest sister, who is 13 years older than I am. And then she had my brother, who by that time the two older children were up and out of the house, and gone. And she had my brother, who was 9 years older than myself. And my father was an alcoholic and abusive.
Oh
So
my God.
so by the time that I came around, I was 3 years old. And so to share with you, um I was 3 years old, and I remember my father, again, she didn't have her driver's license. He was very controlling, and she always had to look the frumpiest she could look. She always had to have her hair in rollers or pin curls. She had to wear his old stretched out socks that wouldn't even pull up anymore.
Right.
He would come home from work and pick my mother and I up and go to the store so she could go in and get him beer and cigarettes. He would park in front of the store window so he could look down. He could see her walk to the beer cooler and back. She was not allowed to lift her head or have any conversation with anybody. Even when she went to the cashier, she couldn't lift her eyes and make contact with the clerk. If she
Wow.
did, I knew it was going to be a bad night at home.
Right.
So with
That is
that,
absolutely horrendous.
I remember that. So here's where this story actually starts for me, is remembering
Right.
that.
How old were
the
you at that time?
three I was 3
3.
years old. So my sister at that time got married at the age of 16 so she could get out of the house.
Right.
So one day my sister had come to the house to do laundry, and she happened to be there when my father came home, and he had been drinking and got in a fight with my mother, saying about my sister being there doing laundry. He got in a fight with my mother and had her on the couch, and he started strangling her. My sister's on the phone calling the police. My father is strangling my mother on the couch, and he strangles her unconscious. He sends me to the kitchen drawer to get a knife out of the kitchen drawer. Here I am, a little 3-year-old. I run to the kitchen drawer and I'm holding myself up against it so he can't get into the kitchen drawer. My brother, who's at that point, he's 12, he's trying to grab my father's legs and stuff to keep him from getting to the kitchen drawer. My mother's
Right.
unconscious on the couch. My
Oh my.
sister, again, on the phone with the police. He kept throwing my brother off and kicking him off, and my brother would keep going back to try to stop him. He got to the kitchen drawer. He picked me up and threw me against the wall. He
Oh
grabbed
my
the
God.
knife and heads back to the sofa where my mother's laying unconscious. The police come through the door before he gets to my mother.
Oh my God.
And so I very, very much remember that. And
That would be a huge trauma in your life. Oh my God.
so with that, again, uh, but that's my mother didn't, again, never having experienced that, what a happy, healthy relationship was supposed to be herself. She didn't know how to provide
Handle.
that or get out of that or find one herself.
Right.
So for that, so from that point, um my mother and father ended up, we moved away immediately, and we moved,
Mhm.
at that time we were living in, I was born in Massachusetts, we moved to Connecticut. This happened in Connecticut. Then my mother, my brother and I, my sister was still with her husband, but my mother, brother and I moved to Maine and moved in with a family member, which was my mother's sister, and she was married to a man, and they were quite well to do, so much so
Right.
that their children they had three daughters, and their children went to a private school and
Right.
they went away. They got, so he wasn't used to having children around.
And he was
And
a they were in a good relationship. It wasn't abusive.
they were in a good relationship between them, but he wasn't used to having kids around, and he was a drinker as well.
Right.
So my mother was working at the mental health institute, the state mental hospital.
Right.
3 to 11 working there. Well, and then my brother and I would be there at my aunt and uncle's house where while she was working, so that she
Hmm.
could get money aside to get us another place to live. Well, one night he'd been drinking and started trying to teach me. He was going to teach me how to spell hippopotamus when I was 3 years old. Well, that didn't go over so well. I ended up learning how to spell it, but I couldn't. I got my bottom blistered so bad I couldn't sit down for a week.
Oh my
My
God.
mother did not know about this because she
Oh,
was at work. She didn't find out until the next day. So when she found out, then we take off and she finds us somewhere else
yeah.
to live. So through that so she decided she found this place, a house that she could rent with the option to buy. So that's what she did. So it was her and I and my brother living in that house.
Right.
So it was where she had worked at the mental hospital. There was a young man at that time going through theological seminary, and he was um, working at the state hospital as part of his training, residency kind of thing. So he helped my mother move us from my aunt and uncle's house into this house that we were renting. And then he would
Right.
stop by when my mother was at work, because she still worked 3 to 11. And at this time, my brother was 12 and I was 3.
Yeah.
No, three,
Yeah.
and up
Still.
through.
Yeah. Still the gap.
Yep. So he was the only thing that I ever really knew as a father. Well, then my mother working at the state mental institution, then she started getting some money aside and said, you know what, I need to supplement my income. So she found another house that now she wasn't renting. She found another house. She had enough money to put down for a down payment. So she put a down payment on this house, but we became the first adult mental
Oh.
home. So the
Oh,
an
neat.
adult foster home.
Right.
So here was myself. At this point, I had started kindergarten. So now I was 5 when this happened. So we became the first adult foster home with mentally ill patients in our home. Now at this point, she only had women. So it was myself and my brother, and my mother, who still worked 3 to 11 at the
Right.
mental
So
institution.
foster home meaning they're children with
No,
mental
no,
illness?
no. These were adults with mental illness,
Oh my God.
mentally and physically handicapped. We're talking screaming, banging their head against the wall, the rocking,
Right.
all that stuff. They had to have assistance with feeding, bathing, and medicating, and they lived 24 hours a day in my home.
Right.
That's what I grew up with. Of course, kids wouldn't come over to play. I was always trying to be out of the house. And I found my first dead body within 2 bedroom doors from me when I was like 7 years old.
Oh my God.
So but that was just became a way of my life, and through that, so that was the
Right.
challenges of that. Well,
So
as
so what
I
happened? What happened that day? You were in your room and 2 doors down from you. Something happened.
one of the patients died.
Right.
In the morning, we found the body in the morning. My mother, because the person didn't come to breakfast that morning,
Right.
so my
Right.
mother sent me to get that lady to come for breakfast. And I knocked on the door and they didn't answer, so I opened the door and I found her.
Oh my God. That's
So
so
that
much
and that
trauma
was
for a little girl.
that was like at 7, and but that just was the way that my life was. So with that, then came when the summer that my brother graduated high school was the summer that I finished 3rd grade. That's how the timing worked out. So he
Right.
graduated and went off to college, and then I um, finished 3rd grade. That summer, we moved from that house to another bigger house, and my mother took in more patients, but then it added to we both had male and female patients.
Right. 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 Right.
So in this bigger home and the bigger situation, but at this point, with having more people, she hired a woman that would come and be an
Right.
assistant there. That she
So
was there while my
so
mother.
in this house, was you, your brother, your mom,
And when
and
I
and
until
everyone. And everyone intermingled, or you
Oh
had a
yeah.
separate?
Oh yeah. No, everything. I mean, you ate meals together,
Right,
everything. Everything. There was no division of anything. It was just our house being shared with these patients because they couldn't take care of themselves.
right. And your mom was successful doing this, but of course it was probably a lot on you and your brother.
Right, right. And again, my brother was that much older than I was, and so he was 12 when all the stuff happened when I was 3. So by the time we started having patients, he was 2 years older because I was 5 when we started having patients in our home. So
Right.
by that time, he was 12. So he was 14 by then, and then he started again working outside the home and everything like that. But um,
So how
he
did
did
he
both of us.
cope with this, and what was your relationship with him like? Was he like a dad to you and a good?
Yeah, he was a big brother, but my brother actually um turned to alcohol and
Oh
everything at a
no.
young age. We didn't again, we didn't realize, and this goes further down the road of the story, but he turned to alcohol at a young age. Neither, this life wasn't the best life for him as well, but we didn't know until after the fact, until many years down the road, which I can skip to now and just share that when my brother was he graduated high school, went to college, had a difficult time in college, and um, then he moved away and started trying to manage a bowling alley, and then he went into the military. He got out of the military, and then some years later, but at the age of um, 30 years old, my brother came out to our family that he was homosexual, and he had become, and at this time he came out that he was an IV drug user. And when he
Right.
got out of the military, he had been an alcoholic, and but he began using drugs. He started selling drugs. He became a male prostitute in order to
Oh my
cover the
God.
cost of the drugs that he was taking. And
Right.
then between all of this, my brother, he became HIV positive.
Right. Really
And
ill too then.
right. So that was he was 30 when he came home from San Diego, California, and came home and with everything, and he died at the age of 35. We
Oh
and
my
we took care
God.
of and we took care
So
of him.
tragic. So
So
so when he passed away at the age of 35, where were you at in your life experience at that time?
at that time, okay, so at that time I had been married and divorced. Um I had been married and divorced. I had been married and divorced 3 times by
Wow.
by by then.
So you
Um,
were, hang on, he's 35, you're 19, 18?
let's see, 35. I'm 12 years younger. Okay, no, so I had the
Oh, you're
time. No,
20. So
yeah, okay. I was married the first time when I was 18.
well, wow.
I was married the first time when I was 18. My
Wow.
husband, my first husband, had a drinking problem. If he would have remembered, but of course he didn't remember. He would black out. He'd get blackout drunk. He took a baseball bat to a car while I was in it, smashed out all the windows and smashed everything, doors, windows, just as everything. He didn't remember. Did not remember
Right.
this. So
Oh,
that was my first husband. My second husband put me through bankruptcy.
okay.
So that was, and I'm trying to, again, time wise, my second husband, the third husband, um with all that. So but they were all the men in my life were all different. Some people, when they have bad relationships, they go back, and it's kind of like a different sheep but in the same
Yeah.
clothing type thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or with that, but for me it wasn't. It was, they were all different. The first husband was the the alcoholic, and that the second husband put me through bankruptcy. The third husband was more, um he was more controlling emotionally, and very, um he was very particular. Like, he wanted his house and everything had to be perfect. Everything had to
Right.
be kept perfect. I had to
Right.
look perfect, everything. You
Yeah.
open the kitchen drawer doors, and all the labels on the cans had to be facing all the same way.
Right.
Bathroom towels, everything lined up just so, and everything.
Right.
But by that time I had my daughter, so it was myself and my daughter. And he
This is your first husband?
no, this was the third husband.
The third husband. Okay, okay.
Yep. Yep. So with that, you
So you
know,
had no children with your first or second husband.
no, no. And
Okay.
actually I never married my daughter's father.
Okay.
I left him when I was 3 months pregnant, when I found out, um stuff that he had been doing, and stuff
Okay.
he had associated himself with. So
Okay.
I had to go through 3 marriages and divorces until I decided that I was going to take time and figure out why all this.
Right.
I
Why did you have to live the life with your
Right,
mom and dad and
right. So I spent 9 years, and this is how, again, it comes to what I do now. Is I spent 9 years learning to know, like, trust, and ultimately love myself.
right.
And so that's what I base, what I've taken and learned. From all that pain comes wisdom, and like I said, and,
Yes, of
and
course.
from that wisdom, and it all comes together. And that's when I actually started writing my book back then, because all the notes and everything that I took, because I took a lot of self-development, courses, training, mentors, everything, to try to find my own path, and what was going to help me with my life.
So I'm
And
going to go back for a sec.
mm,
You said you decided after all this happened. What happened on the day that you decided? Like, what was it that what was happening that day? That like what in that moment? What was happening?
again, after, um 3 tries, and again, I gave those relationships everything that I possibly could, physically, emotionally, financially,
Right,
everything. I put
right,
everything into it. I never wanted to be married and divorced that many times. I
right.
never, I wanted a happy, healthy relationship.
Just like we all
I
do.
Just like
Yes.
we all do. I just didn't know what it was supposed to actually look like or feel like, or whatever. So it was a lot of trial and error. And again, I didn't really I was always a hard worker. With my education in school, I did very, very well in school. I went to high school and beauty school at the same time, my senior year of high school, and graduated at the same time.
So you became a beautician.
Oh yes, I was. Oh, that's something I totally skipped over. So
Yeah.
yes, I became. So when I was a little girl, let's go back to my mother with wearing her hair in rollers and pin curls.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
When and this was an aha moment for me, for like less than a year ago, as far as finding understanding my total purpose. When my mother, again, my father was at work. I could take my mother's hair out of the rollers and pin curls, and I'd play with her hair, and I'd make it look all pretty. And I was so happy to be able to do something for her, to make her
Right.
feel good and make her feel pretty
Yeah.
and good about herself. My mother, and I would say, "Oh, mommy, don't you look so beautiful? Don't you think so?" And but she would sit there and cry. And
Uh,
as a child, I wouldn't understand. I thought she was upset that I wasn't able to make her look good,
yeah.
and that
Yeah.
was whatever. But I didn't understand really what was going on. But before my father came home, we'd always have to wet her hair down again and put it back in rollers or pin curls. But I didn't understand that either at that point.
Right.
So now, as being a young woman and deciding to go to beauty school and high school at the same time, because I wanted to be able to help women feel better
Right.
about themselves, and
Of
all that. So
course.
this still didn't click for me at that point.
Right.
So after that, I was a licensed cosmetologist. I became a registered massage practitioner. I worked in beauty salons. I worked at a salon where I became in management there. And I worked for companies, and you may be familiar with Matrix Essentials,
Yeah.
System Biolash. I worked for the company Matrix, and I taught people how to use their perms and hair
Oh,
colors and their
amazing.
skincare and cosmetics.
Right.
I did that for several different companies
Wow.
like that. I worked at the shows where hairdressers go to the shows to learn different things.
Yeah.
I worked
And
at
you
those
taught
shows,
them.
and I taught them, right,
Right.
and I taught them how to do
Wow.
this. I would go into salons and do classes in the salons to teach
Right.
them things as well. So with all that, then I left the um, salon that I was working at, and I had created my own salon where I had 6 girls that worked for me, and I had a hair salon. It was a full salon and day spa where, facials, pedicures, manicures, body wraps, body facials, massage therapy. And at that point, I was still teaching for the company. But I decided that at that point, I wanted to stop doing that. And I created my own skincare and cosmetic line. My name of my salon was Royal Touches, and my skincare and cosmetic line was called Majesty.
Nice.
I did that for several years. And the problem being at that point, I was still, this was during the 9 years that I was alone,
Right.
I did all this in that time period, and learning to, again, to know, like, and trust myself,
Hmm.
and love myself. So, but with that, I also, being a single parent, not having health insurance, so
Yeah.
this was a difficult time. Then I found, what, I need to get something that's going to give me benefits, because I didn't have them as a single, having an entrepreneur, having my own salon. So I started going to work for different companies besides doing the education, because I had stopped with that after I started my own skincare and cosmetic line. So
Right.
I went to work I worked at an Estee Lauder as a manager. No, no, isn't that funny how I would do that?
Mm.
And I worked at a Bath and Body Works as a manager of a
Right.
Bath and Body Works store, again, for the insurance benefits and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And I ended up going to work for, um, and you're maybe familiar, and maybe a lot of the viewers are too, for Avon Products Incorporated.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I went to work for
I
a.
learned about Matrix when my mom was in Avon, so that's how I know about
All right,
Matrix.
so your mom was an Avon representative, right? She sold Avon
Long time ago.
a long time ago. Well, I managed over 400 Avon ladies.
Oh my God.
I was a corporate employee that I would teach them how to have skincare and cosmetic parties, to have those sales, to help them with their businesses, to help
Right.
them create better lives for themselves and for their families. And in many cases, and the connection here, many cases, most men didn't realize the money that could be made by women having an Avon business.
Right.
And I was able to help women create that income that may have gotten them out of situations that they were in at home that might not have been such good,
Right. Right.
good space for them to be in.
Because
So
you lived it, so you knew what it would be like to. So in a way,
right,
like, God puts us in situations that help us later in life, right? Even though they're
exactly,
the worst freaking experiences that we have, but later in life, you realize then, I mean, even myself in my own life, I realize now what my experiences in my past contributed to now, right?
exactly. So, but I didn't connect all the dots until just about a year ago, when somebody said, "You know what? Your story is unreal. You should really sit down and write it out." So I did.
I agree.
I haven't done anything with it. I have been featured in a magazine, and I have, a whole article with that.
Well, we're
Um
going to do that for you. We got to make it happen.
so I had written it all out, and until I went back and I was reading through all that stuff, and it's like, wow, and everything. Then everything started clicking for me and saying, you know
Can I
what?
ask you a question? So
Yes.
were you writing along the way, or when this person said to you, you really need to write down your whole life story, is that when you wrote it down?
No, no, I didn't. As far as for writing my book isn't my life story. My
Right.
first book wasn't my life story. That was something, again, I started writing notes for all that stuff back when I was in the 9 years that I was learning to know, like, and trust
Know
and love
yourself.
myself.
Yes,
So,
because
but the writing that
journaling is really important when you get there.
right. And so, but for me to do the writing that of my about what happened with and with my life, I didn't even start that until the person said, you know what, you really should do that. So yeah, that wasn't
And
even
who
till
was this person in your life? Someone, a career colleague or a personal
yes.
friend, or
Yeah.
was it?
Well, actually, she's both now, but she actually and I don't know if you know who she is, but Michelle and Michelle Faust, and she has the Lemonade Legend community, and she has the Lemon to Lemonade magazine.
I
So
don't know, but I
you take your
obviously have to get in touch with her one of these days.
yes, right. What she does anthology books that she takes women such as myself
Yeah.
and other women that and they can have a chapter in her book, and that
Wow.
their lives have gone from lemon to lemonade. And
Awesome.
yeah.
Yes, of course. I have seen that book. Of course, of course.
Yes. So,
Yes.
and she's now a personal friend of mine, and we've done different projects and everything together. And so so yes, I would definitely recommend Michelle Foss for that, and the Lemonade Legend, and
You'll
you know
have to connect us. You'll have to
oh,
connect.
most definitely. So she's the one that said, you know what, write this out, because then what we had to do is I had to condense my, I don't know, 4,000 word, whatever I had it at, you know what I mean, of the story.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even everything.
Yeah.
But then I had to condense it down, condense to go into a magazine article.
Right.
But then, okay, so then what I did is, you know what the QR codes are?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now I was able to take the QR code from that magazine and from that article and put it into the about the author part in the back of my book. So
Right.
that, because you can't write, because my book isn't about me and my life story, but it in the about the author, it's there if somebody wants to do a little more research on me.
Research on you. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Right, with that. So that's a basic thing about the article. But
So here's where I ask you what your book's about now.
well, so so what I did is actually, again, I started writing and making notes way back then, because what was it? How did I dig myself out of where I was to where I wanted to be?
Yeah.
And all these pieces and how things go together and how things work.
Wait, there's pieces missing here. Like when you say where you were and where you wanted to be, I want to know like how you got the intuition, the knowing, the courage to make that step of changing where you were to where you wanted to be, even before we go into
Right.
how you did that, because that's really important, because people are stuck in their lives where they are right now. And what was it that snapped you out?
Going back again, after having such not good child life, and when I say, again, it's something that most people they can't believe or conceive it, because they don't understand
They haven't
how
lived it.
that
They
how that
don't know. They
right,
can
it's
never know what you went through.
right, but it I know people that have had worse because of more physically domestic
Yeah,
abuse, violence, or sexual abuse, or whatever like that,
yeah, I hear.
that really affected them. So I'm not saying that I had it any worse than anybody else. It was just harder to conceive and understand
Yeah,
how that works. But knowing that I didn't want to have a life like I had as a child. So then by the time I was an adult, I still didn't know what that happy, healthy relationship was. So I had to go through, and I did my trial and error through that. But I also, was something I skipped there too, is the time that I was a teenager and living in
mhm,
that situation. I tried not to be at home as much as I possibly could. But because I was so mature for my age, because of how I had lived and what I had experienced, I didn't make the best choices of who I hung out with and what I
Right.
did when I was.
Right.
So I put myself into situations that sometimes I wonder how I lived through those,
Right.
and and the people that I associated with and everything with that. So I I have never blamed my mother for that, because she did the best that she did with what
Yeah.
she had and what she knew.
Yeah. It
So
sounded like it as you were telling the story that she was doing the best she could with what
right.
she.
And so I knew and realized and understood that. I have other siblings that resent her
Right.
for what they went through because of that. But you know what I mean? That's
That one
this
part
is
didn't
my
affect you.
right. This is my journey and they had
Yeah.
their own journey along
Yeah.
that. So,
Absolutely.
but from the and what I can say is that I know for a fact our choices and decisions are what define our destiny.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so the choices and decisions even I made when I was younger, and I
Right.
was middle school, high school, and what I chose to do is I chose to put my attention into my education through working, and working jobs, because how I was able to go to high school and beauty school at the same time is there was a program called like work study. So
Right.
I was able to start high school the summer before I started high school. I started beauty school full time that summer. Then when I was in high school, I went to high school from 8 until 11, and then I went to beauty school from 12 to 4:30. But they wouldn't give me credit from high school for going to beauty school because it was another school. I had to have a job. So I had to work 5 to 11 waitressing at a restaurant. And I got
Wow.
credit for working at the restaurant. So, but through that, I was able to go, and over school vacations, I'd go to beauty school full time for that. So I always, again, if it was something I wanted to have, and even with my mother raising me, if it's something I wanted to have that it was more than what she could provide for me, I had to provide it for myself, whether it be
Right.
school clothes or whatever. I worked and paid by babysitting. I worked and paid for my first car before I had my driver's license.
And you were motivated and you wanted that, and you had come to the conclusion that you could do it on your own, which is another lesson that people don't learn right away too.
Right.
They feel they need to rely on whoever it is, their parent, their husband, their whatever. Whereas
Exactly.
you had the.
I I had to do it. If I wanted it, I had to do it. And
Right.
again, I because I didn't like this, I tried running away from home, you know,
Right.
but I had to do the best with what I could do in that circumstances. So
Right.
I was very involved in school. I played sports, anything I could do to be outside the home, I was outside the home. And
Right.
that led to babysitting, which led to me being able to get the money to buy my car and all that stuff. So that's, I guess, because again, I looked and I learned from, and I really, to this day, I say it is important to realize that you can learn from other people's wisdom. And when you accept
Absolutely.
that instead of having to go through the hard part of yourself, see, I
Right.
learned because I was around so many adults, I learned again a more mature thought pattern, I think,
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
most everyone else did. But I like to say now, I am a grandmother now, I'm a
Hmm.
grandmother, but I say I'm a Grammy. I don't knit, I cliche. And what I
Yes.
mean by that is that, there are so many words that, those words of wisdom that
Yeah.
they say, and just throw out something, and I'll tell you, it just means so much. Words that have been around forever. And it's like, you know why they still say that? Because it's
Yeah.
true.
Because it's
These
true.
old adages, because they're true, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and so it really, you know there's so much wisdom that is there to take advantage of and know that it's real and for a reason. So a lot of what I have put together in even my book and what I teach today is the fact that it's something that we all have heard of, or no, but I've taken it into the way that I worked through it for myself to
Right.
move me forward from when I decided. And when you asked me what it was, is like after 3 times, it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What's wrong here?
Like
And
for example, with me, when I came to that day of that day when I'm like, what am I doing here? I was sitting on my couch, on my sofa couch. There was an album sitting there, and I picked up the album. I don't know why, but I'm going through the album and I'm looking at the pictures, and I'm like, what did I do? Like, what did I do? Like, what did I do in my life? Like, why did I make the decisions I made? And
right,
why am I so unhappy? So that was, and that moment changed everything for me, because that moment is when I started to decide I want a different reality. And
right,
while I want it here in this space and this time with the people that I'm with now, maybe it's unrealistic. And maybe it's time to think about other possibilities. However, I mean, I realize, in any situation, you could recreate that same thing again, because it's you that created this reality, and you are going to create it again till you fix whatever it is that created that reality in the first
yes,
place.
yes, yes. Oh, Shiraz. What I say is in my book, and so it's the second edition of my book coming out, because the first one,
Yeah,
you can't, it sold out on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Books a Million. So my second edition's coming out, and will be launching soon.
right.
And I'm going to change up the title and subtitle a little bit, but it's rise above your challenges and living outside the box of limiting beliefs,
Right.
because we put ourselves in this box, with
Yeah.
our own limiting beliefs, or the ones we allow others to put upon us, you
Yeah.
know, and we do. And so what I do with for clients and everything is to help them.
Wait, before you
Okay.
go there, what
Yeah.
did you do for yourself? So you came to this realization, you realized something needs to change because this is not it. There has to be a better reality for me. What did you do? What was the first step you took? And what was it that made you take it?
Well, and taking stock and going over, you know, and at that point, I didn't write down all the stuff in my life that had happened
Right.
prior. I just went through it in my head,
In
and
your head.
looking through all the stuff. But and what I did, and that's, again, that's why I teach this now, is don't let the stuff that happened hold you back, because if that was your life, that doesn't mean it always has to be your life.
Right.
Everybody can make a decision, and again, choices and decisions. Everybody can make a decision to change their life tomorrow
Yeah.
and start making.
Scripture tells us every moment is a new realization or a new manifestation.
ex- ex- exactly. So it can start over tomorrow, it can start over in an hour, it
Yeah.
can start over in a minute, it can start over in a second. So don't let your what has happened in the past hold you back. But what we all have to do is take what has happened and break it down and learn from those things. And that is what I did. That's what I did after all of that. And I looked at all those things and what happened here.
Right.
What is it? You know, why
What
do
decision did I make here to result in this? What decision did I make here to result?
right, right. So what were the bad things? What were the good things? We all know the pros and cons list, basically,
Right.
is what I did,
Right.
from looking
Right.
looking over the past.
Right.
But then also, what I did is I said, and again, through again what I did at that point, with all the courses I took and all the reading that I did, and the people that I spoke to for mentors and stuff. And what I got from that is to take stock of who I was at that point in time, because who I wouldn't have been who I was unless I had gone through what I went through. And that's the
Right.
same for every single one of
That's
us,
just
even today.
absolutely,
So again,
absolutely.
everything that I do and teach isn't anything that we haven't already heard. It's helping people make connections. And since I had to make so many connections myself, eh, I walk my talk daily.
Yeah.
so with that, but then finding out, okay, what are my strengths? What am I good at? You know,
I love that word, connections.
right. And what are my strengths?
Yeah.
What are my weaknesses? I have them, but let's figure out what they are so that I can build them up or
Right.
change things out. What are the opportunities that lie ahead of me? Who are some of the people I know that I might be able to reach out to and help me in one way or another? And
Right.
and then what are the threats that I may be facing? So that you're real about this. So with all that, I had to do that for myself. So that because now and what I do now and what I had to do for myself, again, all the stuff that I teach now came from what I had to do myself, and
Right.
how this connects all together. So you have to know where you are in order to know and figure out how you're going to get where you want to be. Because Shiraz,
Right.
if I wanted to go to your house, if you don't know where you live, how can you give me directions on how to get
No,
there? And
that's right.
so that's the same thing. To get from point A to point B and to put it in your GPS system, you have to be able to plug in both coordinates.
Right.
But if you
And I
don't,
have to be able to deliver the instructions, and you have to be able to receive the instructions and be able to interpret them too. So that it's a two-way street as well.
right, and there's no straight line. There is no straight line, baby, to get from point A to point B. Life happens to every single one of us, whether we're ready for it or not.
Right.
So that's why what I do is, and again, I learned this from having to do this myself, is I had to create plans of how I was going to get there. And everybody's heard of the SMART plans.
Right.
Everybody's heard of the SMART plans. You're systematic, you're measurable, you're achievable, you're time based. But
Yeah.
I chose to add the ER on the end, smarter, because they also have to be editable and they have to be revisable. Because again, back to life happens to every single one of us,
Right.
and we come across detours or issues that are unforeseen. And look at what the world has had to do with COVID. We all
Yeah.
the stuff that has had to pivot, change, and
Yeah.
all of those things. And
And
so
that's on a whole, like it's on a humanity level versus an individual level,
right,
right?
but now people are dealing with both. They're having to deal with the
Yeah.
humanity level and their personal level.
And their
And
personal level, which hasn't happened in the past.
right. So this is where so many people are. There's so much depression. There's
Right.
domestic violence and abuse is home in the households because people
Yeah.
don't know how to deal with these things, and
Right.
having the children home more than, so there's so many things with that.
Yeah.
But so everything that I do now and what I've created for the tools, because what I've done is create tools to help people work through the process. And I created a system that once
Right.
people learn the system and work it a little bit at a time, it is everything I do is encouraging, educating, and empowering people to create
Right.
the best lives for themselves.
Right.
So
And
with
so
that,
when you say tools, they're step by step.
yes, yep, yeah,
And you
actually, yeah.
outline things step by step for them.
Right. And so the first book, the book that I've written, is written as a tool. So at the end of each chapter, there's assignments.
Right.
So to work through. Once people have gone through the book and created, and I have people create a 3-ring binder to put their goals into. And they work on these goals and only work on 3 at a time. Don't ever try to work on anything more than 3 goals at one time, because you're going to self-sabotage.
Right.
It's just putting too much on your plate. When you have the 3 things that you're working on, make sure that they work together and will complement each other.
Right.
And just take this for an example. And so many people right now, maybe New Year's resolutions, and their resolution is
Hmm.
to get healthy and lose weight and all that stuff.
I
Okay.
just watched a Dean Gracio's video where he goes he's names all the New Year's resolutions everyone has, and at the end of naming them, he's like, "And we're all set, right?" And he's like, "Nope. How many times have you done that and not done a thing? It
Right.
doesn't work that way. It's not enough to make a list, right?" And he
Right.
tears the list up. So what do you do now? And I'll let you tell us what you do now.
Well, and so what I say though is you have to know what three things, and again, don't put anything more than the three things. You have to, and definitely you got to write them down. You have to date when you want to have them achieved by. And then you work backwards from there, from that point that you want to have them achieved. You work backwards from that point and create your own little milestones. Okay, this.
Right.
Now, I tell everyone you have to create a budget, and not just a financial budget. You have to have your budget for your time that you're going to put into something, the money you're going to put something into something, and the energy that you're going to put into something. And what I
Right.
mean by energy is
Yeah, I
because,
was gonna say.
right, because I teach people to, and I teach organization, calendaring, and planning is all part of stuff that I teach, because you have to prioritize and synchronize things in order to get things done.
Right.
So your prioritize is your A, B, C, D, and E.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely have to do, must do, got to do. So that's your A, B, C. Your D is delegate, and your E is eliminate. So
Right.
when you're putting your to-do list, put your to-do list, or whatever, and then A, B, C, D, and E them. Okay. With that.
Right.
So, and that's where the energy comes in, because we all know that to get things accomplished, they're not necessarily things that we have the skill or the will to do ourselves.
Right.
So that's where delegate comes in. And that's where I say your energy, your energy and your planning and calendaring have a lot to do with how much energy and what you can accomplish.
Right.
So your A, B, C, D, and E is your prioritization. Your
Right.
synchronization is your 1, 2, 3. So each A, B, C, D has its own 1, 2, 3 in the order of those things having to get done.
Right.
And that goes back into your planning and calendaring, whether you're looking at 5 years out, 3 years out, 1 year out, then breaking your year down to your months, then to your weeks, then to your days,
And they can
and
learn this
how
from
those
your
things.
first book?
No, that's part of what I teach separately
Okay.
from the book, but I talk about that in the book. But the second, the Divine Your Destiny planning system is coming, and that backs up the book
The
and
book.
works with that,
Wonderful.
because with how all these things do. And what I teach, Shiraz, is also for people, and this is part of everything. We need to put ourselves first. We need
Right.
to, when you're on the airplane and they say put your oxygen mask on first if there's an
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
It's because
absolutely.
we need to put our oxygen mask on first. We need to keep our cup full. We need to keep our batteries charged in order to have the energy to give to others.
So what
So
would you say to somebody who disagrees with that?
um you know I say, here, just take this for an example. Okay. if if you didn't have in your calendar, if you didn't have your family's birthdays, anniversaries, those doctor's appointments, those
Yeah.
graduations, those are your big stones. When people say put those are your big things,
Yeah.
that you need to put yourself first. So that's all part of that. So when
Right.
I say putting yourself first, I'm saying your health. That's your, not just your physical health,
Yeah.
but your mental health, your spiritual health, your financial health.
Right.
So you have to put yourself first and put those things into the calendar,
Right.
and for that and for your mental health, and for those feelings, that is those family times, those times that you need to be there. So imagine if you didn't put any of that stuff in your calendar and never celebrated and never was there for those special events, how happy or joyful of a life do you think you would have?
Excellent example.
So thinking of it that way, think about if you didn't put any of that in, you just went about and you would live life aimlessly, because you would have
Absolutely.
no joy. And
Yeah.
I think why this means so much to me at the point of life I am, I think it has to do with age and maturity. But also, what I say, Shiraz, is I choose to live my life purposefully,
Yeah.
joyfully, and gratefully. To
Yeah.
me, that's the perfect
That's
trifecta. And where all those, if you had a circle, purpose, joy, and gratefulness, where all those meet in the middle, that intersection, to me, that's bliss. To
Mm,
me, that is
yeah,
pure bliss. And I want to help more people live in that space, because at if you're not getting to have the time to have that connection, especially now with what's going on with COVID, we
yeah,
need that connection with family, friends, and loved ones, but friends and like-minded individuals. And that's the thing. Remember when you were a child, did you ever have your child as a child have your parents tell you, you are who you hang out with, so be careful of who you hang out with?
yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
I got that a lot.
Yeah,
And when you're a kid, you're like, and I was like, well, I am who I am, and they accept me for who I am, and I'm not going to be
I
like that
accept
just
them.
because I hang around with them. But
Yeah,
still, as an adult, we all know, yeah, that may be true, but because of the reputation they have, other people automatically assume
yeah,
that you are like them. And
right.
we know that as an adult, but as a child, you don't
Yeah,
quite get the grasp of that.
right.
And as an adult, and what I've learned over the years too is, again, when you are with other like-minded individuals, and you are on a mission, you don't have to be and that's part of why I have a peer-to-peer mentoring and accountability membership program, because
Right,
I learned back when I was going through everything that if I had that support system, I would be even further ahead than I am now.
right,
And that's why I've created one, because
right.
of the fact and the simple need for that. You need to have people, and we call them your front, your circle of friends and family, but those that your front seats people, your people that are there, that are your personal cheerleaders. They are there to encourage you, but they're there to hold you accountable, too, and to bounce those ideas off. And with my system, with what I'm doing with the peer to peer, is that people are from different genres, and not everybody has to be all in the same line of. Uh, if everybody did the same thing, we'd all be bored, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
You have.
it'd be boring. It'd be
Right.
very
So,
boring.
so you have to have people and other people that are around you that come from a different thought pattern, and
Right.
mind and mindset. And it's all we all, as you've gotten older, people realize that everything has to do with mindset and positive and habits. And we all have habits, good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah,
We all have them. You know,
yeah,
um, and what I teach my clients, because I had to learn for myself, is we need to compare ourselves not to other people. The hardest thing for us to do is stay ahead of ourselves.
right.
That we're,
And
you know,
keep improving yourself, and
it,
keep
it,
looking at yourself and seeing how you want to be better yourself. Because as you better yourself, you're bettering the environment around you, and the people around you will also benefit from that. Absolutely.
yes, exactly. And so that's what it is. And we all, to us, to each individual person, success is different. Success may
Yeah,
come across totally different as what one person considers success. Now, some people look at other people's success and put them on a different measurement as they do themselves.
yeah.
So what I teach people that you need to do is you need to define what success is to
To
yourself,
you. Yeah,
to you. You need to define what wealth is to you.
right.
It not just financial wealth. It could be, you're wealthy because of the relationships that you
Yeah,
have with
yeah,
your family and friends,
yeah.
or with
Absolutely.
yourself. So again, that's all the part of the deep work that I do, because it is so important for people to have that, all those things, to know, again, who they are, where they are, so that they are powered to move forward. I help people to create a toolbox, and so that they are, and they have that there when they come up against those tough times. And I promise they will, because every single one of us does.
Yeah.
It's just having that toolbox and knowing how to use it.
So I want to go back again for a bit, and
Yes.
like all those traumatic events that went through your life. Um, what was the silver lining in all that? And You said you took courses to develop yourself. So tell us a little bit about those courses and how they helped you.
Oh geez, those were again so long ago. They were just what, I took night classes at college. I took college night classes in business management even,
Right.
and in part of that, one of the courses I took was psychology, so
So
and
there's
just
something
have
to be said when you realize that you need a change, that you need to flip the switch, whatever, however you want to put it. There is something to developing yourself, and to develop yourself you need to go out there and learn new things and teach yourself whatever it may be that it is you're looking for, and find and educate yourself. So education plays a part, not the kind of education we're used to, but know yourself education.
right, 100%, 100%, because there are so many self-help books out there that work in different aspects of your life, whether it is financial, whether it's spiritual, whether it's, emotional health, you know, um, and everybody's needs are a little bit different. You
Right.
know,
And there's there for everyone, for sure.
there is something out there for everyone. And it could be, if it's a course that someone's teaching, not every person makes a connection
Hmm.
with somebody, and it can just be with
Yeah,
who knows.
absolutely.
Who knows? We all know that we connect with other people,
Yeah,
um, for whatever it could be. Hey, I
absolutely.
like their smile, or like I like their personality, or how they come up.
Or I recognize that story. I went through it. I want to experience my transformation through their eyes because of that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So through all that, again, we are who we are because what we've been through.
Right.
And we wouldn't be where we are today. But again, it goes back to the choices and decisions. Once we do what we take from what we've learned, and
Yeah.
how we make it different, for the future. So
Yeah.
you know keep every single one of us, we need to keep focused on our future as far as what we want, because again, everything that has happened during the pandemic, people that had careers that they've had for their lifetime are now not knowing if they're going to have the job to go back to, or if they own that company, if they've been able to
Yeah.
stay open. So
Yeah.
what I'm telling people is, if you had a dream of something that you wanted to do when you're a child, and if those dreams are reoccurring to you, there's maybe a reason why you may need to
Right.
revisit that, because for whatever reason, that's in your soul, that's part of the passion. You have a passion or a draw to
Right.
that for one reason or another.
Right.
you know
Right.
and right now it is, um with we've heard the word shift and pivot, and
Yeah.
all of those words, but it really is, necessity is the mother of invention.
Hmm.
So what do you have, skills or interest in, that tie in with things that you see are in need today?
Right now. Yeah.
And yeah, right now. And for
Yeah.
me, right
And it's
now,
time
I know.
and it's time to be prepared to flip the switch before it comes to that point where you're, without a job or without a career, God forbid. And, just preparedness is really important now too.
Right. And I have been hired by parents to work with their children as young as middle school and high school, to determine and get to know themselves more, seriously, and think about who they are and what they want to be, so that they take high school more seriously, so
Right.
that when it's time, if they're going to choose to go to college, that they're
Right.
going to be more serious about their education and taking the right high school courses to line up to go into the college. Because there are so many people out there that have gone to college, they get out of college, they're $250,000 in student debt, they get a job in that career and have it for a year and find out they hate it,
Yeah.
or now they don't have that job because that job's
Yeah.
no longer available, but they still
Right.
have that student debt.
Right.
And with how things have happened, why not have a better career path. We have, and really thinking about this, aren't there so many blue collar jobs out there and service oriented jobs out there that we need people filling those
Mhm.
positions? You know,
Absolutely.
so it if somebody has an interest in something right now, I would
Grab.
say grab it
Yeah.
and go with it,
Yeah.
and you are worthy. You're worthy of having it, and you're capable. You know, you might, if you might not have the skills right now, but that doesn't mean you can't learn those skills. But if
Right.
you have the will and you have that drive, you
Yeah.
can get there.
Absolutely. And so let me ask you this. So there's so many teachers out there right now making offers of bettering other people's lives.
Yep.
Give us some examples from your workshops of clients you've helped. You know, if you can think of a success story or something like that, that you could share with us, so that you know the people listening to this can get a feel for what they can receive from your course or your book or your program.
You know, again, working with younger clients, just one in particular, just thinking of for them, for an example, of for them to say, really knowing what they have for their own strengths, what they want, and really digging down for that. It was able, you know, they were able to pick out the courses that they wanted to take and look through the rest of their school years what is going to line up to get them to where they want to be. So
Right.
just you know, for that, you know, because school, there are the school guidance counselors and everything, but they don't really work with people as much on a personal level as they
Right.
do the academic level.
Right.
With that, I don't have the academic level. That's where I could take them back to them. But once the child was able to say, you know, I really know where I want to be and what I want to be
Right.
doing, you know,
Right.
then they were able to go to the steps of, okay, let's get this, you know. And then I have someone else that had a hobby that they had that their whole life, and then upon retirement saying, you know, hey, I need to start creating some income here.
Right.
So to be able to go with them and go through the process of what do you have that you know that you have, again, for these strengths, where do you find the weaknesses, what are the things, what are the skills that you're going to need to learn or to hire out in order to
Right.
turn this hobby into a business so that
Right.
you can create that income, you know,
Right.
with putting all those things together. So
Right.
you know, looking at those aspects, you know, it is here's an example of someone else who um, is an entrepreneur that already has an existing business that they actually do with working with clients, but they came to a point where they were struggling with feeling like they had, and we'll just say imposter syndrome, you
Okay.
know, and feeling like, you know, who am I to be telling people what to do or how to do things, you know.
Right.
And they were struggling with that, and to the point where they were stepping back completely from everything, saying,
From
hey,
what they're
I
doing.
right, and saying, you know, hey, maybe I need to be doing something else,
Right.
you know. And I think a lot of people are suffering from similar things right now.
Right. Right.
So, and so what, you know, and
Very
what I
important.
I have to for people to get to know me again, you know that I have my show, and that's part
Yeah,
of
we're going to talk about that in a sec.
right.
Um, um, I wanted to also ask you, um, so decision making is one thing. The other thing is reactions, and people react in situations too. So there's two things that affect their lives. It's the decision they make and the reactions they make.
Yes.
So can you speak a little bit about that through your life? And the other thing I wanted to ask you was, you mentioned, like, okay, your whole life that you went through as it was, and you're here now, and much wiser, much more focused, and more ready to move forward, already moving forward, would you change your life in any way? Would it be a life, would you prefer a life where you actually had a coach along the way so you didn't have these experiences?
Well, okay. So let's take that part first.
Okay.
Um, I, I've learned what I've learned through, again, through the reading, courses I took. But again, those were so many years ago, I don't even remember who it was exactly, or whatever. But the books that I read, one of my favorite authors is Dr. Wayne Dyer. And
Right.
I don't,
Mine too.
both, and and like I've said with him, he says it's never crowded along the extra mile. And most people think that the extra mile are the high achievers that are way up
Yeah.
here, and it's not crowded along where they are, which it isn't. But what it actually is, it's not crowded along the extra mile, because the extra mile is it's behind the scenes. It's what needs to take place in order to build that strong foundation to
Right.
create your strong, your big dreams and goals on your life upon. It's putting all those pieces into place and locking those in. That is where the extra mile is, and that's where people don't
Wow.
take the time and really think about the seriousness and the importance of doing that.
Wow.
So so that, and again, I guess that's what I learned way back then, and saying how I had to put all those pieces together for myself, and I took the time to do it then.
So in a way, it was a really beautiful experience, even though
Yes.
it started with trauma.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
would say the same thing in my life, that even though whatever happened in my life affected me however it did, I wouldn't exchange it for anything, for what I have now, with the knowledge I have now, with the learnings I have
Right.
now, the spiritual growth I have now, and continue to have, like, you know, um,
Right. Exactly. And you and I have had a conversation,
yeah,
and actually you were part of my awakening of the things, and I haven't I haven't dived deeper into that, but I believe I have some. I mean, I have empathy, but
yeah,
I think it's even more. I think it's deeper than that,
right,
and like you and I had said, and I think that ties into it too. But I think that is, where does that come from? That's for me to ask you,
yeah,
where does that come from? That comes, I believe that comes from our heart and from our soul
absolutely,
and who we are at the core. So
absolutely,
so I guess I have a combination of taking everything that I've been through, and that wisdom, and the pain that's caused the wisdom, and through that, and with the empathy, and that's tied together for me. So I have people that will come to me, and they'll start pouring out their hearts, and I've only said a few words to them, and they
yeah,
are able to release to me, and
right.
because of who I am, I think, and what I've been through, and the
And also take this point too, is that everyone we're talking to is really ourselves talking to ourselves, right? It's
yes,
really an expression of ourselves coming back at us to say, hey, did you think of this, did you consider this? And
right.
now what I'd like to do is go to what everyone's been waiting for, the Patty Joe Grover show. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I created the show because I have my book, and my book is my tool. It's the tool, I can use it as a business card. I can, get it out there. I want to get it into as many people's hands as possible, because once somebody uses it and learns the system that I have, once they start having these little wins, and oh, and that's something else. And when I talk with planning and calendaring, I teach you to put into your budget to celebrate those little wins. Put it into
Absolutely.
your budget of your time, money, and energy into that calendar.
Yeah.
But so when people have that little bit of a small win, even kids, so I say even working with kids as young as middle school age, once they have that, that builds their self-confidence and self-esteem, so they're ready to take on something bigger.
Right.
And even as adults, we need to continue. Once you achieve something, doesn't mean it's all over, right? We don't just sit back and relax and do nothing. You
Yeah.
need to have something you're always going for.
Yeah.
So with the book, is a tool. Everything that I've created is a tool. All the courses, workshops,
Yeah.
everything is a tool to help people. So yes, I am all about service, and I want to, when I know, and I get messages from people, oh, that's, just listening to you, it connected for something
Yeah.
for me, and
Yeah.
and emotionally, and made me want to move forward.
Yeah.
So those things, I find a beautiful thing, and I feel wonderful about them. But
Yeah.
when we have our own dreams and goals, people don't, a lot of people don't allow themselves
Right.
to do that. So when I can help people to do that, and then they can look at how they want to get there.
Right.
But with all that, with my book is the tool. The show is why I created that, is because I want people to know that, again, the more messages that I get on, I have guests come on the show and share. I ask my guests to share struggles that they may have been through in their personal or professional lives, and how they made it through. That shows my viewers and listeners that you are not in this alone.
Right. Absolutely.
Everyone has had struggles, they've
Yeah.
made it through. You might
Yeah.
learn something from what someone shares. So whether it be, I've had people that have had problems with addiction, with drugs and alcohol, and how they've made it through. I've had people with, again, with me, with relationship and different things like that. I've had, again, financial people on, and all that. So I ask people to share stories, for my viewers and listeners, on how they made it through, but also, and or if they have products or services that can help people along their journey. Because
Right.
again, I never say that I am not a financial advisor.
No.
I
Yeah.
am not I am not a psychologist or psychiatrist. I
Yeah. I
am
hear you.
not, right, all these things. But I can, help people along the process, but they need to have the right people in their circle for their specific needs.
Right.
So having guests on the show helps me to be able to help more people.
Absolutely.
So, and so
Same.
when I hear back, and that's the thing, when I hear back, that one of the guests I had, or one of the conversations just sparked something in somebody, to me,
Yeah.
that is tremendously rewarding. So that's why the show, that's
Yeah.
why the show. And then I also, I am creating, I'm working with somebody now, I'm creating a bliss retreat for women, for specifically for women, to help them, as right now. Oh, bless you.
Sorry. Thank you.
Especially in this time, where we're bombarded with so much negative, and there's so much depression and everything, to teach them to put themselves first.
Right.
So to me, January, think of January, it's
It's all
all
about
about you.
you.
And February is also February, because you can't get things right, and you can't get your life right until you get things right for yourself.
Absolutely.
We need to, show up for ourselves before we can show up for other people.
I'm super excited. Like everything you talked about, your courses, your book, I'm super excited. Can't wait to
Yeah.
have you be part of something we're doing together, and maybe we can hold a workshop together or something,
Yeah.
and share you with the audiences of
Well, and I want to have you on my show. And so,
absolutely.
and yeah, and so
Do that.
what I've done last year, let's see, through 2020, I've done 66 episodes of my show. And
Right.
what I've done is asked all the people that have been guests on my show to join me, because every Friday now at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fridays, I am doing a networking and mastermind group for all the people that have
Uh,
been guests on my show, to help people move forward with their business. Because the more, like you and I, the more that we get to know, like, and trust each other, the
absolutely.
more apt to, you're confidently going to recommend me to other people within
Right.
your own network, or even internationally. And that's the
Yeah.
same thing I'm doing with my show, but I'm doing it also now, with this group that we're meeting on Fridays, but I'm starting and I'm going to be having a summit with all the people that have been guests on the show. And again, just spreading it, the more that we can spread that positive message to help
Absolutely.
people. And in April, I am also looking at doing an anthology book series with people that have been guests.
Wonderful,
Yeah,
wonderful.
so
Exciting.
just like the Lemons to Lemonade book,
Yeah,
but this is in with different ways that people can be of help to people on their journey.
amazing, amazing. Well, Patty, I've exhausted all my questions.
Oh, and
Probably
thank you so much. I feel so blessed to actually have met you and made the connection that we have, um,
same.
of- to you. And oh,
Thank,
you know,
thank you, Patty. It's been quite the journey, and I'm so glad I'm doing these interviews too, because the people need to know how amazing people are out there and
right.
what people are doing to help each other out there. And the more of us get to know each other, the more we grow as a community and as a humanity, right?
Yes, yes, definitely. And again, just to know, again, there's so much negativity when you turn on the TV, turn on the radio and everything. It's so easy to just be lost in all the negativity.
So
So
true,
it's
so
good to
true.
have all the positive.
And just everyone just needs to remember that if they focus on themselves, the outside will change. Focus on yourselves, everyone, and we'll see a new
Yes.
reality as a humanity. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was
Oh,
such
thank
an honor
you.
to have you, and we'll have you back.
Mwah, mwah. I'll
Tell
have you
everyone,
on my show soon.
absolutely, tell everyone how they reach you, and we'll put it in the video, of course, as well.
Okay. Yes. You can text the word goal, GOAL, to 866-926-4020. And I have gifts there for everyone to actually and do it. There's 3 assignments because I give homework. 3 assignments there. You do the 3 assignments and they come back to me and I'll do a one-on-one consultation with you to help you put together your foundation to move forward. But if you just go to patriciajogrover.com, the Joe, J-O, just patriciajogrover.com, you can find out all my information there and reach out to me.
Thank you, Patty. We'll definitely let
Yeah,
everyone know your website and lead them to you. Thank you again.
wonderful. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Don't go yet.